All right, y'all, this is it. Today is the day that I decided to start vlogging my real estate journey. This YouTube page I'm gonna start is gonna give it to you raw, uncut, day one, start to finish, my real estate journey as I begin my journey as an investor. So, many of you know that I'm already a licensed Texas real estate agent. And aside from that, I was a full-time operations manager / superintendent, whatever you want to call it, for Georgia Pacific. So real estate kind of was like a part-time thing for me. Kind of did it when it was convenient. However, my close friends and family, and now all of you know that I lost that job about a month ago, April 16th, 2025. Remember that date because it's going to be important a couple months from now. That was the day I lost my job, and that was the day that my life began. So I won't go into this long sob story about what happened. You know, if you already know, you already know. If you don't, maybe one day you'll find out. I'm not going to be that person that goes out and says, if you work in a 9 to 5, you need to quit. Everybody doesn't have it like that. But what I will say for me is the day that I lost my job was the day that my journey began, but it was also the day that my vision became very clear as to what my dreams were, what I wanted to do. And I think I already knew those two, but how was I gonna make it happen all became clear that day. So that's what this YouTube page is gonna be about. The journey from April 16th, 2025 up until today where I'm starting this page, and this will be my first video up until we close on our first deal, right? Again, I told you, raw, uncut, because if you're trying to get into real estate, if you're trying to get into wholesaling, you're trying to get into investing, whatever that may be, you can search high and low, research things for hours, reading different books, different articles, watching different YouTube videos, watching TikTok or whatever social media pages or platforms you're on, and you follow somebody that may be doing the same thing. But as you may notice, there are very few people who give you all the details, lay it out for you, right? Without charging you for it, right? Everybody wants to charge for a master class. Everybody wants to gatekeep all of the knowledge, right? I'm gonna give you the real deal. I spent a lot of time trying to figure this all out. I spent a lot of time researching, making phone calls, asking people, whatever you can think of, I've been doing it, right? And eventually, I just said, forget it, it's time to do it. Because I did come across a page of a guy who was definitely very influential to me in terms of beginning this journey. And the one thing he said is, if you overthink, over-research, overdo it in terms of the educational piece of it, you'll never start. And that was what took him 3 years, because he was trying to be perfect as he went. So with a lot of prayer, a lot of thought, it was just time to do it. It was just time to do it. So I'm gonna share all of that with you from day one, every bit of the process, what you need to do, the financials behind it, getting contractors, getting under a contract, how to get estimates, your different financial options. I mean, it's just a lot. It's just a lot. And you all get to see me throughout this journey as I screwed up, because I will. I'm a first timer, right? And we're gonna correct those mistakes. And then you'll see my second investment, my third investment, so forth and so on. And you'll see the difference. You'll see the growth. You'll see me learning from my mistakes. And then hopefully with this information, you all won't make the same mistakes. But it's inevitable, right? Get into something new, complete career change. But it was a dream of mine for a long time, and it's definitely time to make that happen. So that's what we're going to do starting now. All right, so it is hot. We're done here. That's our second property today. First one was in Cleburne, Texas, about an hour south of Dallas, southwest. And Yeah, we'll see. I was a big fan of the property in Cleburne. Not so much a fan of this one, but it's in Dallas. It's definitely a more sellable market than the first property I went to. So if I was gonna do something that I didn't have to sit on long, this would probably be it. But I'm also looking at Cleburne, thinking about how much money I would not have to put into that property, because whoever had it before now was clearly looking to rehabilitate it, but ran out of funds because they gutted the whole thing and left it. So that's just another cost that I wouldn't have to cover because it's already gutted. So all we have to do is move in and pretty much design it how we want. So I've already sent footage of that property to my contractors, and see who gives me the best deal on it. If I can get somebody to come in at about $50,000 on rehab costs for that property, I'd be really happy. And I'd probably even go ahead and move forward paying full asking price for that property, which is $110. So I'll be looking at about $160. But if I can get that deal for $150, I'd be really happy, and I probably can let it go for, I think my comps for that property were like $220. So you're looking at about a $70,000 profit potentially. We'll see. This property, to get the deal, is about $170. I'll see what the guys want to do from a contracting standpoint, from a rehab budget. You know, even if I did that one for $50, which I don't think I would have to do that one for $50. But if I did, you're looking at $220, and the ARV is about $270. So I'll probably make about $50 off of that one. So I don't know. I'm also not thinking too much about how much I can make, because it is my first one. I'm more so thinking about how fast I can move it once I get it acquired and rehabbed. I don't want to sit on the loan because I'll be paying the interest on that hard money loan. So that's where we at right now. I'm about to head home. Got to fill out some applications for pre-approvals for this lender. Get all the footage to the contractors to see who's talking about what. And then hopefully we can do something in the next couple of days. So stay tuned. We'll see what happens. The reason I started today was because I finally got to a point where I think I got everything lined out, right? I'll get into another episode about where my personal feelings came from, right? But that was my whole thought process was I got money now. I was able to attain a lot of money alongside from what I already had saved. And I was gonna start my real estate journey. I was gonna put X amount of money keep X amount of money in my savings, and then take X amount of money invested, flip the property. I'm already an agent in the state of Texas. I'll list it myself. I've also even thinking about going home back to Gary, Indiana, get into it with one of my guys out there. He's an agent out there. I can do XYZ, let him list it. I mean, I had a whole game plan. And one of my homegirls, shout out to Brittany Thomas, B. Thomas, you know who you are. I may even at her so that you can utilize her services. Definitely another wealth of knowledge, but I'll get her permission for that. But she called me one day, we were talking and just catching up in the real estate game, how things going. She didn't want anything besides just checking in on me, which wasn't unusual for her, but it had just been a while. And I told her what I was into, what I was getting into. She's taken off, she's changed brokers, talking to me about different broker. That's another story. I'll talk about that when I get maybe to an episode when I talk about just being a real estate agent. But today we'll talk about investing. So I was telling her what I wanted to do, and then how are you funding it? I told her what I was thinking, and she, hey, you ever thought about a hard money lender? I told her no, but honestly at the time, I didn't even know what a hard money lender was. So couple days go by, I'm researching. I came across a YouTube page where the guy was giving us a few tips on how to get going. He talked about a private money lender, right? Or private money investor, I think is what it's called, PMI. It could be lender. I'll look it up and put it in the comments. However, I was like, okay, I can go that route. But then I didn't have to find somebody to do it. So then I was thinking, okay, I've got that option. I've got my own money, right? I could go to the bank and get a loan, whichever bank will decide to give me a personal loan. I had an LLC, I'll get to that. Maybe I can get a business loan. I'm just thinking about everything. And at this point, my mind is running 1,000,000 miles a minute on what should I really be doing, right? So a couple of days go by, I found another guy, which is the guy I talked about a few minutes ago, was where he really was a lot of influence, or had a lot of influence on me. He talked about a hard money lender, right? So I got to research, and it was exactly what I was looking for, a way not to use my own money, right? Get enough money to not only acquire the property, but put enough money in for rehab costs. Understanding I've got to pay it back and it'll be interest on that, but it seemed to be pretty reasonable, considering the fact if you get a good property, you get a good rehab cost from contractors, and then you got a good ARV, you can get it on the market, get it sold. You know, you're gonna lose some money, but you gotta do that in order to make some money type of deal. So it was exactly what I was doing. He put his hard money lender, and I looked it up, but then I just got to looking up different hard money lenders in Texas. Also, again, since I thought about going back to Gary, trying to find a lender that will work between Texas and Indiana. Found a couple. I'll eventually, once we go further on into this deal, put it in a link in the comments, which hard money lender I went with. But it was a lot of research, right? So, again, getting back to B Thomas, she told me about it. I ended up finding a guy that went in more detail. So that's where I got the funding from, a hard money lender. But that was like step 2, because to get the loan, you have to have a business account, and that'll take us back into step 1, right? Everybody that I've spoken to says do not do real estate investing under your own name, right? Do it under an LLC. So first and foremost, if you want to get into investing, you need to get an LLC, okay? Get a business. If you go through, I went through LegalZoom, and I don't know what the cost is nowadays. I got mine about 4 or 5 years ago. LegalZoom will literally do the whole entire process for you if they still operate the same way, right? You pay a fee, whatever it is, for their services. They get you going, and of course you pay all the fees for the documents and processing, whatever that is. I think I had that thing in a couple of days, maybe a week, right? So for me, luckily I already had one. It was just collecting dust. So I was not doing anything. It had not generated any revenue, which I'll get into why that became an issue for me and held up this process by like a couple of weeks. But business account, you gotta have a business account for these hard money lenders to give you money. And to do that, you have to have an LLC. So you get an LLC established, you go to the bank, you set up a business account, right? Now these these hard money lenders do acquire or require that you have proof of funds up to a certain amount. So the one I want to go with right now is asking that whatever your loan is, the value of the loan that they give you, or the loan amount that they give you, you have to have at least 25% of that, right? And then they require that you have at least, I think, 50% of the rehab value that you can show. Don't quote me on that. But I know you gotta be able to show you got money, right? So all that money that I was going to use on my own to invest, or of my own to invest, boom, I put that into the business account. That was my first deposit. I got a checkings, I got a savings. For you, you don't have to do that. I got it just in case something crazy happens, your account gets hacked, whatever. You don't have all your money in one place. So I got a business account and a savings account. And whenever I'm able to do proof of funds, I just get bank statements for both. So you want to do that, right? And then once you have your business account established, you got money in it. Now you're able to search for that hard money lender, right? Research them. A couple questions you need to ask. I figured all of this out by myself after researching, right? You want to know, where do they service, right? Do they service in your state? Do they service multiple states? You may want to branch out one day and get into investing in other states. For me personally, I want to go back to my hometown, Gary, Indiana, eventually, maybe in a couple deals from now, a couple months from now. I'm actually flying out there this weekend and check out some properties. I might jump into it now, but the company I want to go with services Indiana. So just FYI, that's a question I ask. Where do you service, right? Do you want to get into what's the interest rate, right? Some of these loans you're paying 8% interest, some of them you're paying 12. Now the thought process is that's a lot of money. You could be paying $1,200 a month back to these folks, right? But your whole mindset, your goal is to, you find you a good contractor, you get you a deal, you get the work done, 3 or 4 months you're out of there. So there's only 3 or 4 payments you're making. Get the house on the market. Hopefully you can get a good agent. You're in a good market where you can get that thing going in less than 30 days, 4 or 5 months. You've already, you've made those payments. If they're $1,200 a month, you're down, less than $10,000 on a loan that you, on interest that you've paid back. However, you flip this property and made $50,000-$60,000. Now I'll go into more detail about those numbers and everything once we get to talking about the contract and getting a deal. But that's just, high level estimates of what you can possibly do, right? So you want to search for a home money lender. You want to ask them again, where do they service, what their interest rates are, what does your term look like? So some of these folks are 6-month terms, so you got 6 months to pay them back. Some are 9, some are 12, some is 6 with 3 months extension, some go up to 24. Typically what I've been seeing right now for folks that I'm looking at is between 6 and 9 months. You want to ask, what is your minimum credit score, right? I've seen as low as 600. The highest I've seen so far is like 650, 660. So you don't need like great credit, right? The better your credit, the better off your loan will be in terms of your payments, how much you'll be able to get and things like that. But I've seen as low as 600. You have folks out there that don't require a credit score at all. So it's just about where you're at in life, where you're at financially, where you're at with your credit, to see who fits you best. But that's a question to ask. I would also ask, what are the costs to get the loan going? What are your closing costs, right? Some folks have down payments. Do you have a down payment obligation? I've seen lenders require 10% down payment. I've seen some that don't require down payment at all. And if you can get a property acquired in your rehab to be within that loan amount that they'll give you, they'll cover the entire thing when you don't need a down payment and you just pay the closing costs, okay? Maybe in the next episode, I don't know if I'll do it this one. It may make sense to do it this one though, but I would definitely talk about the calculations for hard money, right? And I've got a site that I use for a calculator to kind of tell you that, but you don't need a calculator. I can give you the formula actually to help you figure out kind of what your closing costs and things look like, right? So that's a question you want to ask. You want to actually order appraisals, right? Because you want to see if that property is going to sell for what you think it's going to sell for, because you're going to need to run comps, right? Comps are comparables. So you want to take the property that you're interested in and you want to find 3 to 5 properties. I like doing 3 to 5. Some people do 3, some people do 5. I've seen people do 10. But you want to get 3 to 5 properties who the properties are pretty much almost identical. So if the subject property or the property you're interested in is a 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,400 square foot property, you want to find your 3 to 5 houses that are sold or are listed or under contract. I mostly like to just do the ones that have sold in that area less than a half a mile away, right? 3 to 5 properties less than a half a mile away that are built just like the one you're looking at. So 3 to 5 properties that are 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,400 plus or minus square foot that are sold in the last 3 months, right? If you can't find anything, Then you go to maybe the last 6 months. If you can't find anything, then maybe you go from a half a mile to a mile. But you want to find your 3 to 5 properties that you can compare to that one and see what they've sold for. Okay, that is the comp. That's your comparable. I found 4 properties. One is sold at 250, one is sold at 225, one is sold at 230, one is sold at 240. Right? You're gonna take the average of those 4 and what they've sold for, and that's your comparable. So what is that? Maybe, I don't know, I lost track, maybe 235, somewhere in there in the middle. That's your property to potentially sell for. And that's how you come up with a good after repair value. I'll get more into that formula here in a bit. Maybe jumping all over the place, but again, forgive me, this is my first episode. I'm excited and I just want to share everything. So I'll get down to organizing a little bit better, but come up with that average of what those 3 to 4 houses have sold for, and that will tell you what yours could potentially sell for, because that's what that market is going for, right? If those comparables, the average is 230, and you want to list your home for 260, 270, good chance it won't sell. That is how you get your home to sit on the market longer and longer and longer than you want it to, because you got it overpriced. Unfortunately, if that house is worth 270, that does not mean you're going to sell it for 270. You're going to sell it for what the market tells you you're going to sell it for. And that's just how real estate works. So you're going to run a comp to see what that house is potentially going to sell for. And once you get the hard money lender, you're going to actually do the order appraisals, because they're going to get an appraiser to go out to see if what you came up with, let's say 230, if they're going to price it at that, they could price it at more or a higher amount. And that's going to determine what amount of that loan they're going to give you, because they're not going to give you starting out between 70 and 75% of the appraised value or the after resale value. And the after resale value is confirmed through the appraisal. Some folks don't require appraisals for home loans. The one I am going through does, but they'll order it and you just pay for it. So you want to ask that question: do you require appraisals? You want to ask, do you require insurance? Okay. Mostly everybody, I have not seen anybody that does it, is going to require you to get risk insurance. Point blank, period. What it costs is up to you. I know each lender is going to require that you have that insurance policy paid up in full before you can get the loan. However, you want to ask, hey, do you require insurance? All of them are going to say, yeah. Okay, do you have anybody in your network that you can provide to me information-wise? And every one of them that I've called has somebody in their backlog that they can connect me with, so that I can call and see what their insurance policies are looking like. Or you can just call around and ask your own. All right, that's something else you want to ask. You want to ask what the origination costs are going to be, your points. I've seen as low as 1 to as high as 3. Okay, and what is a point? That's 1% of the total loan amount. So what that is you're going to pay interest, right? If they got a 10% interest rate, you're going to pay that 10% interest every month. And then if they are on a 2-point origination system, you're at 2%, but the 2 points is 2% of the loan amount. So if you get in a loan of $100,000, you're going to pay 2% on top of that 10% interest rate. So you want to ask about the points as well. That was something I had to figure out. What is these points? I heard people say 1. Another guy said 1.5. Somebody said 3. There was one lender in the frequently asked questions that actually defined what the point is. So I shared that with you. And as I go through these definitions, I'll figure out a way. This is my first one, but I'll figure out a way to put all the definitions and all of the equations and formulas that I come up with. I'll put them on the screen so that you can see them and take notes. But that's what the questions, those are just some questions you want to ask the hard money lender. What do you service? What are your interest rates? What's your minimum credit score? What fees are associated? What's your closing costs? What's your points origination system? Do you require insurance? Do you know of any insurers? You want to ask how fast can you close, right? Some of these folks drag their feet in investing. You want to get this thing going in a couple of days, week max. You don't want to drag this out. Do you require down payment? Do you require appraisals? And what does your terms look like? So those are kind of some questions, and you obviously come up with your own. If you ever want to know if the question is appropriate, feel free. I'll put my information for you to reach out to ask me anything during your journey, because I'm trying to figure out who to call on my journey. And I've got a couple of folks that got my back, but again, when you have everybody doing their own thing, you don't want to just constantly reach out and bug people for help. So that's the hard money side. Then another thing that this guy taught me is you have to find a good contractor, right? I'm a real estate agent. I've shown a lot of houses. I've seen bad contract work. So bad that it was almost embarrassing for me showing my client the property. That's another reason your house won't sell. You may have to pay for better work, or be able to verify that the folks who have gone for a lesser amount can provide the services they say you can provide. You can do that by testimonials. Check out the reviews. Check out the Google reviews. Ask them to provide that for you, because they have them. Pictures of their work. What does their portfolio look like? These are the things you want to ask a contractor in their interview, right? Don't be afraid to tell that contractor. At least for me, I'm not. Maybe this is or is not the right way, but I had a guy say on the high end, I can get you about 70,000. Now that's just high end, which means it'd probably be lower than that, but I had to be clear, like, look, I got a deal. I want to make an offer tomorrow. If you can meet me here, this is the number I want to be at. I want to be at $50,000 for rehab costs, maybe 55. If I can do 50, that'll put me exactly where I want to be for this property. Well, if you and I meet at 10:30 a.m., I'll make an offer by noon, right? And this is money in your pocket, and this is my first deal. Definitely not gonna be my last. And if you can meet me here, you'll be my guy. So those are the conversations you have, right? You gotta learn how to leverage your negotiation skills, right? I'm not the greatest at negotiating, but I know what makes sense financially for me. And I know that in this game, you have people that may try to, I thought about telling folks this wasn't my first deal, but then again, I'm like, for what? I've got enough common sense to know somebody's trying to get over, right? And that doesn't mean that nobody will get over on me doing this process, and I'll learn from it. But I know enough to be dangerous, so they say. So, don't be afraid to negotiate. Them guys want money. They're just going to see how much they can get out of you. But they want business. They want to build relationships with folks that's going to bring them business all the time. Because, one of the harder things to do is go out there and network and try to sell yourself to somebody when you got 10 other people selling themselves to that person for the same thing. So they wanna do business with you. Now, don't be absurd with you gotta be realistic, but don't be afraid to negotiate. So those are the questions you wanna ask the contractor. You have a portfolio, you got pictures, you got testimonial, what are your reviews? Can I get information on you? And then, are you charging me for labor, or are you charging me for, are you charging me for labor, or are you charging me for parts and labor? Not parts, I can't think of the word I'm looking for. Material and labor. All right, so you want to ask that question too, because what is this estimate you're going to get? And you want to get a line item estimate, and I'll get back to that in a second. But how do you even find a contractor? I'm talking about questions that you can ask them. How do you find your contractor? So like I said, this guy said, hey, I was lucky enough to go see a property, and there was a general contractor there. And I was also lucky enough to put out a video. He already had some followers because he was a wholesaler at one point, and a contractor reached out to him. So that was kind of his thing. But he said, hey man, go into Facebook, type in whatever market you in. I'm in Dallas, DFW Real Estate Investments Groups, or Dallas Investment Groups, or Fort Worth, wherever your market is, find an investment group and you just join as many of them as you can. Because each of those groups is gonna have folks trying to buy, they're gonna have folks trying to sell, they're gonna have wholesalers, they're gonna have real estate agents, and they're gonna have contractors. So and then getting back, another reason why I started this today, because there were so many things I didn't know where I was going to start this whole journey. And today I woke up, all I wanted to do was just go see a property. And I saw a property and everything started to fall in line. I knew I wanted to take a contractor with me. So I was like, okay, I don't even have a contractor. It's 10 o'clock at night. I've booked a showing for this property an hour away. I don't even know how to come up with an estimate on my own for maintenance costs. This property is horrible. And I can't get a contractor to get there with me. So I woke up, I did research, I watched his videos all over again to say, how did you tell me to get a contractor? And I was like, okay, he did say Facebook, so I'm not crazy. But my problem, I hadn't been seeing any contractors. And by the grace of God, I logged on Facebook that morning and the first post was a contractor looking for some work. So immediately call him. I had a coworker text her, she sent me a guy that did her bathrooms. She sent me pictures, it was great work. And then I scrolled on another investment group and found another contractor. I hit up my guy, Kez, he does windows. I will definitely be tagging him, because if you're looking to get into investment out here in DFW, I want you to use my guy for windows. But I know he was into, again, windows. Hey, do you have anybody? He said his guy just moved out of town, but I got some new folks I'm meeting Thursday. I'll send them to you, but I'm like, dang, I need them tomorrow morning. So I'm reaching out to these people. They finally start calling back as I'm driving to the property. So I'm like, okay, cool. Now what can I do? They can't meet me there. I pull up my phone. I recorded the entire setup. Recorded everything. I recorded the as far up on the roof as I can see. Actually, this property had a ladder in the backyard. I climbed up, recorded the roof. I went around, recorded the foundation, recorded the outside of the exterior of the home, recorded the porch, and then obviously top to bottom inside of that home, right? Floors, baseboards, the walls, the paintings, how many rooms, the electrical outlets, the electrical boxes, everything, plumbing. So he can get a full idea as best as he can from that video. And all those 3 contractors I spoke with that morning, I just sent them that video. I uploaded it into a Google file because they were too big to send it on the iMessage. Upload them to a Google Drive, created a new folder, sent each of them that link to that folder separately, and 2 out of 3 guys called me back. We're back. If the footage looks different, because it's now I'm on my phone versus the GoPro. I don't even know how I use the GoPro in the first place. But anyway, I was talking about the contractor, right? And forgive me, I have to go back and even figure out where I left off at. So if I repeat anything, I'll cut this video up and figure it out. But yeah, he said high end 70. We negotiate. I say, look, man, this is, he actually asked me, what's the property worth, if you don't mind me asking? Because this looks like a home run. It's already gutted, right? That's where I left off at. The property was already gutted, right? Which is a steal for us, because that property was going to have to be broken down to skeleton pretty much to rehab the entire thing, which can get pretty expensive depending on who your contractor is. But the investor bought the property, and this is the dangers, and I've heard this on several videos and whatever, and I've spoken to different people. If you don't have a way, if you want to buy outside of your market, right? If you live in Texas and want to buy in Indiana, you either need to be for sure you've got the means to get back and forth from Texas, Indiana, which I know I can't do. If you can, more power to you. Or you've got somebody that'll be a business partner with you that is 100% just as much invested as you are, right? Because this is your money. Or in that case, it'll be, whatever agreement you all work out, it'll be y'all's money. But if you don't have anybody that can be at that property, it's a dangerous game. So this investor was in it. They got the property. They had it stripped. They had The electrical work was already complete. The roof was brand new. That is a $5,000 to $10,000, sometimes $15,000 job in the state of Texas, and all the plumbing was done. Right, this guy had all his work done, and then it bit off. The contractors bit off more than they could chew, and they didn't have enough money, so he had to let the property go. He let it go for $110, $110,000. That's a steal, and the contractor just didn't believe. He said, "Man, what's the resale value?" For this one in particular, I'll put more detail as we go along. I'm running the comps of 220,000, right? So I'm getting it for 110. If this guy can meet me where I want for rehab costs, that'll be 50,000, 55 on the high end. So that's 160, 165 I put in. I could potentially get 220. I may be a little bit generous just to get it off the market. You know, I'm looking at $50,000, $60,000 and paying after paying interest and probably paying for other things I'll talk about, like getting trash removing, all that. I walk away about $50K for my first deal. That's not bad, and considering the fact I put down little to no money depending on what my closing cost is going to be, I can probably net 50,000, maybe more, low end 40, 45,000, which is not bad when I didn't use my own money. Think about that. Use somebody else's money to make you 40 to 50,000 that you put back in your account on top of all the money I already said I was going to use originally. I didn't use any of it, and then threw 40 to 50,000 back on top of that, right? So these are just rough estimates. I may make that much, I may make more, I may not make that at all, but at the end of the day, it's going to be a profit because I didn't use my money, right? And if we break even, it'll be a learning experience. But this property was too good to be true. The contractor thought the same thing. And I'm like, I went to see it. Seeing is believing. And they're letting that property go for 110 if I don't negotiate, right? If I don't ask for a lower price. But I might come in at asking price just to get the property off the market, depending on how things go. So he said, hey, meet me there tomorrow at 10:30. It's an hour drive, but I say, look, I'll leave the house 9 o'clock. I will be there. Let's see what it looks like. I know you say 70 high end, so that made you probably come in a little bit lower. All I ask for you is transparency. If you have to charge me 60, then I want that to be legit 60,000 because of not only labor, but the material. But this guy does work. He said he does about 50 houses a year on the low end, so he's getting stuff for wholesale. He knows folks that are getting them stuff, legit stuff for the low, because he's always doing business. And that's kind of the people that you want to work with. They can get the materials for the home at a cheaper rate than somebody else, and they just want to be paid for the labor, right? So when you get into contract, there's a couple of things y'all can talk about in terms of payment. I'm like, look, man, if you can give me the 50 to 55, you for sure will have a customer. You for sure will have somebody that will be, hey, I got a deal. Let's go look at this property right now. And that's the type of relationships you want to build. And so he's like, look, man, if I have to charge you whatever, it's because I have to charge you. But you telling me, hey, 50 is the number, 55, I can work with that budget. But I have to let them know, hey, at the same time, I do want this property to get on the market and go pretty quickly. So if I got to spend money to make that happen, I will. I don't want it done cheap to where it's going to sit long. Let's make it look good. Let's make it look like we spent money even if we didn't. I need good work. So we'll see tomorrow. We're going to go up there at 10:30. And if everything checks out, and I also had another contractor text me back right after I got off the phone with him. So now everything's falling into place. So that gets back to my point. Why did I start vlogging today? Because everything just started happening. And right when my phone died, as I'm waiting on my other camera to charge, or when my GoPro died and I'm waiting on my camera to charge, in the midst of me getting my phone set up, I opened my email to find the pre-approval letter from my hard money lender. I just got approved for $300,000. That's well above the market I'm trying to tap into starting out, right? I'm looking at properties. I'm trying to keep properties less than $2,000, and my rehab costs between, $60,000. If I have to go, no, I'm $60,000. It's kind of where I'm trying to stay for rehab costs. So I'm looking at properties, getting properties less than $200,000, rehab costs up to $60,000. I'm not really trying to get anything for higher than $260,000. which is why this deal was good for me, and I think it will be if it all works out, Lord willing, because I'll be in less than 200,000, and I can sell it for way more. So I just got pre-approved right before I started back recording. So we're in the game, right? I went to see a property. I got my business account set up. I got a hard money lender I called around all morning. I got one I think I was interested in and it may fit what I want to do, and I think they can move pretty quickly in terms of when I have to close. Grace of God, I found 3 contractors this morning. 2 got back with me. 1 is like, meet me tomorrow. That's the type of folks you want that'll jump, right? These guys want money, but sometimes they just take the time and drag their feet. And in the game of investing, you have to go when duty calls, and you need somebody in your corner that's willing to do the same. So got our contractors on board. Now, last step is we need to get a contract going, right? We need to get a house under contract, and that's what the goal is in the morning. But something that helped ease of mind is that pre-approval letter. I have enough money in my account to provide proof of funds, because most of these investors that or not investors, the folks that I've getting this property from are actually realtors. But you got wholesalers, they want to see proof of funds, right? That doesn't mean you're not credible and things like that. They just don't want to waste time. And I do the same thing as a real estate agent. Folks call all the time, and I take everybody serious, but not everybody is serious. And you can show homes, and these folks don't have any desire to buy a house. They just want to see the home, right? Or, yeah, right, I want to try, but I'm not looking to buy it next year. Like, these folks are looking for people who want to take these houses off the market, right? So, how you been pre-approved, or can you provide proof of funds? I was able to provide proof of funds enough for that now I was serious, but I didn't have the full amount to purchase nor do a rehab. But that was never my intent anyway. I knew I was getting a hard money loan, so I threw it out there like, hey, I'm working with hard money, but I've got enough in the bank. I'll send you what I think, and that way you know, hey, this is legit. Can I see the property? Sometimes they may go for that. Sometimes they might not. But this individual did, and I actually had somebody else I did it to. They didn't go for that. But whatever. It's gonna work out for the better anyway. And that's the thing. It's not gonna just be roses and daisies, right? There are gonna be some trials and tribulations. Not everybody's gonna be nice. Not everybody's gonna work with you. Not everybody's gonna believe your work ethic. They're gonna want to see hard data, and you gotta respect it. So she was like, okay, I see you got money. I'll let you see the property. But in the works, I was already in the background working with the hard money lender, because you want to. This goes back to part of the question you should ask a hard money lender. Actually, let me throw this in here. You want to ask them what are the steps to get pre-approved. Once you get that pre-approval letter, you know for a fact what your max budget is, right? They approved me for $300,000. This means that I've got $300,000 that I can get out of them to cover, and that needs to cover my acquisition of the property and needs to cover my rehab costs. Now I know what my budget is. I'm not guessing. That is why a pre-approval letter can be important. Also, it kind of speeds the process up. If you want to make a deal, you already know this property is going to more than likely get pushed through, and we get the loan for it. So you want to ask them, what is the process to get pre-approved? They want to explain it, and if they don't tell you, you want to ask, is it a hard credit pull or a soft credit pull? I really didn't want a hard credit pull for pre-approval, right? Not that I was worried about my credit or anything, but I'm this type of person. If you're gonna run my credit, I need to know for sure I'm getting what I want out of it, right? And that's not something they can tell you unless they actually look. Some of these lenders were doing hard credit pulls out the gate, but that inquiry was good that pre-approval was good for a year, so they wouldn't have to pull it. If they pre-approved me for $300,000, they wouldn't have to run my credit when we actually went to apply for a loan. With the soft inquiry, they're looking at everything, what they see, they'll give me $300,000. But when we go to make a deal, they're gonna have to do a hard credit inquiry, which is fine with me because you've already told me that you're gonna pre-approve me for $300,000. I know my credit is good enough where you should get me somewhere close to that number as it is, or maybe even more. And if it's a little bit less, I'm still good because I know what I was originally trying to do was less than that anyway. So you want to ask that question: what does the pre-approval process look like, and is it a hard inquiry or a soft inquiry? It's perfectly fine, whatever one you decide to do. For me, I wanted to go with a soft credit pool, and that was kind of my thought process in terms of making a decision on what lender I wanted to go with. I put that application in at 5:55, and it shows a timestamp of 7:02 in terms of when they replied to me. So that was very quick. We're in the paint. So now, part 2 of this video, we're going to actually drive back to that property tomorrow to meet that contractor. All right, we're gonna meet at 10:30, and if everything checks out with him, I know the property is 110. I'm willing to pay 110 if my contractor can give me where I need to be for my rehab costs. If this guy meets me there and I don't have to negotiate the asking price, I'm making an offer. I can't see why not. We've already kind of talked through ideas earlier in the day about what we want to do. Knock the ceilings out, make high ceilings from a bogus dummy ceiling that's been up there, just taking up space. Let's open that space up. It actually was a window in the attic so that it adds some more natural light in. What type of floors we want to do in the bathrooms? Do we want to knock out this little house in the back, or do we want to redo it? You know, what do we want to do? And he's decided that the plumbing, electrical, and roof is already done. So we should be able to knock this out the park. And this guy said he's a worker. If we can knock this out 2 months, 3 months, come on, man, it's a win-win. But obviously he wants to see it, give me a more accurate number. So I'm excited, but all of this transpired in the last 12 hours. I woke up this morning, all I had was a game plan to go drive to this property, whether I had a contractor to meet me there or not, or whether I was gonna make an offer, whether I knew anything about the hard money lender I was gonna use. I still knew nothing. And woke up, text the guy like, hey, I'll be there at this time. Found some contractors, got them on the line, called the hard money lenders. I asked them all those questions I just told you to ask, wrote them down in my notebook. I can actually show you what that looked like. So you know I'm not just making this up. I asked these questions. And then in that process, drove to see the property, took video. If the contractors can't be there, take videos. Take videos, I upload them on the hard drive, the Google Drive, share them with the contractors and see who responds. Now, just because nobody else responds doesn't mean you're gonna go with that guy. You know, I like the way he talked, and he was very responsive. He even called me back earlier and said, hey, who are you working with to get this deal? And I told him, he said, man, I know folks that used to work for them. They're good, but I know, so this is the 3rd time I'm doing this, but it'll be the final part because I was almost done. But I think the last thing I said was, just because that was the contractor that responded doesn't mean that's the contractor you go with. He was just or that I'm gonna go with, but he was just the fastest to respond, which is what I need. You need somebody that's gonna respond fast. And he was the most consistent in terms of communication. And I like what he talked about. I like what he said. You know, he seemed to be able to, he knows what I want. He said he feels he can provide that. He knows what I'm looking for. He wants to build a relationship and move forward, which is what I'm looking to do. I need somebody that I can say, that's my contractor. I don't want to have to go see a property and I got to figure out, can I get a contractor there? Call this guy and say, hey, I'm getting ready to go over here. Now, these folks are busy. You're not their only client, right? But you build that bond where they say, oh yeah, I know he's serious. I'm getting over there. So we'll see what the others are still talking about. He was just the one that offered to get over there. So he's got to be serious. I'll see if he's legit. But that's where we're at. These are the notes that I took from asking those questions for those lenders. So as you can see, I was serious. Right here, here's my notes. Just the same questions I asked. But another one on here I forgot to ask about, I forgot to tell you to ask about was the loan minimum. Now, it's really not a make or break you type of deal. I saw $50,000 minimum. I've seen $75,000 minimum, but most folks are saying $100,000. Depending on where you are, that's pretty important. For me, being a DFW, everything there ain't much going below $100,000 besides land, and I'm not looking into developing right now. So that's further down the line. I need properties that need to be rehabbed. There's not much in the DFW. This is why it's crazy. I'm getting this from 110 if we get it. There's not much in the DFW going less than 100,000 that's gonna be worth investing in that you can flip and sell, right? So $100,000 minimum, that's kind of where I'm looking to be. 150 for a property, 50 to 60,000 for rehab costs. I'm looking at 2 to 210. That's where I want to be for right now, starting out. I obviously want to get into higher end properties, but for my first couple deals, let's just get comfortable with the process, get comfortable with how things work. We learn, we talk about it. So not a deal breaker for me. But if I go back to Indiana, this lender that I'm looking to work with does work in Indiana, but their loan minimum is $100,000. And Gary, I might not need $100,000 loan, right? It's properties out there going for $25,000, $30,000. I could probably put $60,000, $70,000 in it, and now I'm only at $90,000, right? So that may be an important question to ask depending on what market you're in. If you have markets to where the homes are going at a low price and you can get them with good rehab and sell them for, X amount of money, but you never have to ask for more than $100,000, that may be an important question to ask. If you're in a market like me, DFW, where everything is already above $100,000, there's really no minimum I would need to really ask for. So that's another question. But one more thing I wanted to add to that before we close out. I talked about getting in contact with hard money lenders, in contact with, contractors, where to find those folks at. I don't even think I talked about how to get properties, right? It's a lot of ways you can get properties. You can go find the deals on your own, drive the neighborhoods and find people looking to sell their homes. You can get in the same investment groups where I found the contractors and find wholesalers who are looking, they've already acquired the property or got it under contract with somebody and they're looking to give it to you. Again, I'll go into the definition in a different video, and they want to buy it, sell it to you. In those groups, you got real estate agents looking to sell properties that they've got, right, in their brokers network. So several ways, but the biggest way to go is the best way, or the way I did it, or what I learned from YouTube, is to go in those investment groups and just look at every post. Every day you wake up, when you're eating your breakfast, drinking your coffee, whatever it is, you check your emails and you hop in those investment groups. And what I did was drop my email in all the comments. Drop them, copy and paste in the comments. Copy and paste in the comments. Eventually, somebody's going to respond to you, right? And I had a gentleman respond, and I had a young lady that was a real estate agent. After seeing the property, we talked, and she's actually a wholesale agent, which I didn't know existed. I'm actually going to dig into that and research just to see kind of what that is, how does it work. I may be interested, I don't know. Focusing on one thing at a time. But what she does is she gets off-market properties and she's pushing them out to investors. Here, this is not on the MLS, but this is a great deal, but this property it's a wholesale deal. It needs some rehabilitation. This is the aftermarket or after resale value. What do you think, right? And I found one in the group, but again, like I said, once I get all this stuff start happening, I got on the phone, call this person, then that lets me calling this person, that lets me calling this person, that led me back to this person. Got on the phone with that contractor, and this is what I talk about, building a relationship and a network. He called randomly and said, "Hey, who are you doing this deal with?" I said, "Hey, yeah, I'm doing it with so-and-so." He said, "Oh yeah, I know those folks. Good people, good business, but I know somebody that used to work for them that's doing his own thing now. Let me put you on three-way with him right now so he can get you some properties." It wasn't to take away the business from that. company or from that broker or from that young lady, but it was another avenue for me to get more properties because as a contractor, his whole thing is he wants me to see as many properties as possible because he wants me to make a deal because he wants to be my contractor. So everything came around full circle today, which is why I started this vlog journey. So get on the phone with him and put me in contact with another wholesale agent that he knew personally, and now he's sending me deals for stuff that's in the DFW. So I actually got 3 wholesaling agents right now that are just blasting me emails all day, every day. I got one for one company that's giving me everything in the DFW, and I got another company where they've got the market split. One guy sending me Fort Worth, and another young lady sending me Dallas. So I'm getting properties left and right all day. And there's some good people. Like, you gotta think this is how they eat. If I make a deal, they're getting paid off of that. So they're hungry. They're not just sending an email. They're texting, hey, did you see that email? They're calling, introducing themselves. Did you see that email I gave you about this property? I know we talked earlier about what you were looking for. This kind of, might fit the criteria. Take a look at it. Or, hey, did you get a chance to go see the property? Or, hey, you said you were gonna see it. What'd you think? Did you get a chance to go see it? Or, I know we talked and, you saw the property, but you're waiting to hear from your contractors. Have you heard from really, I won't say informal in terms of the relationship, but very consistent in the communication. They want to do a deal with you. So they're just pumping out properties. And that was kind of how I've gotten to this point. Started in investment groups, pumping out my emails. Some people finally responded and they started throwing me. And the thing with those investment agents or wholesale agents is that you're gonna have to sign a little contract, but with the contract, all it's saying is, and I've read through them and they're all saying the same thing, is that you won't go behind their backs and try to talk to the actual owner directly, or you won't go behind their back and actually wholesale the property after you get it from them. They're looking for end buyers. They're off-market properties. They want to find investors that are looking to just buy and sit, add to their portfolio, or buy and rent, or fix and flip. That's what they're looking for. And I'm a fixer and a flipper. I might not be a fixer. I'm not a contractor, but I'll pay somebody to fix it, and I'm definitely going to flip it because I'm an agent. I'm going to list this thing and get it going, and you'll see it. So that's kind of how I got really how my property started coming to me. Again, you can get out there. There's plenty of ways to find properties. I just gave you a quick 3, but those investment groups where I got my start. Now I'm just getting so many in my emails that I've kind of just been focusing on that. And that's where this deal that we're getting ready to go hopefully make an offer on tomorrow came from. So it was too good to be true, but those things go fast. So yeah, these agents are on you and you'll think, man, they're begging for deals. They just want you to get a shot because there's so many investors out there looking to get in. The properties don't sit long. And I'm surprised the one I'm looking at right now is set as long as it has. That's why I'm getting over there first thing tomorrow to wrap this thing up if it's right for me, because I don't want it to get going from somebody else because I waited too long. So you're gonna have to get a move on, which is why it's important to go ahead and get the business account set up. Go ahead and find your hard money lender. Go ahead and find you a contractor. Go ahead and get pre-approved for a hard money lender. That way, when it's time to come make an offer on a property, you don't have to miss out on that deal because you're trying to wait for other things in the background to happen. And it all can happen quick. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this video up, man. Again, you see it right here. April 16th, 2025. I got that date written down, and I will remember it forever because it's what pushed me off the cliff. I was upset, but it needed to happen because that's what led me here. And within a month, it took me to learn all of this. And I'm still learning, and you all will see that, and you will see every error that I make. I'm a recorder in it all. I want you to see my mistakes. I had a conversation with somebody the other day and said, man, why do people gatekeep? And that's part of the reason people gatekeep. right? Because they don't want you to see their errors. They want you to see all the stuff they post on Instagram and social media about their wins. They don't want you to see the real deal because it'll expose their losses, and not everyone is comfortable with exposing their where they've struggled. So not everybody's gatekeeping because they just want money, but some people don't want you to see where they actually had to struggle. They just want you to see the end goal. I want you to see every bit of this struggle because I want you to learn from it, and I want you to see every part of the obstacles that we overcome and the victories we get, so that you don't become frustrated, or that you don't still have that reluctancy to get into the game because you see somebody like me that literally knew nothing and made it happen, right? Yes, okay, you say you're in real estate, but I just got my license in October. I didn't sign a contract with my broker till November. So I am new. I am less than a year in the real estate game in general. So for me to get into investing, I don't know anything. And again, I'll get into the difference between being an agent, wholesaling agent, being a wholesaler, being an investor. Kind of give you some definitions, and you can try to learn which way you want to go. But fixing and flipping is where I want to go. I can even take this property with the same lender, fix it, and rent it out because it'll be my property at that point. I can take it, Airbnb it. There's so many things you can do, especially in a market like DFW. But again, I'm just going to focus on buying, fixing, flipping, putting that money that I made back in my account, and I didn't have to touch my money. That's the biggest thing. So you're going to see that. I appreciate you all taking this journey with me. Again, in 12 hours, we went from only having a property that we were interested in to getting 3 contractors to meeting more agents that were sending me properties, to getting approved for or finding a hard money lender that we like, getting the pre-approved for way more than we needed or wanted, having true interest in the property. I saw another property in Dallas today. I'll talk about that later on tomorrow probably. And then actually going back, setting up time to go see the property tomorrow, so potentially making an offer and going under contract. You'll see all of that. And sometime by next week, we should have been enclosed, and then you'll see us break ground and actually start getting into the nitty gritty. You'll see me going back and forth every couple of days to give you all updates for the next 2, 3, 4, or 5 months. You'll see me list this thing as an agent myself, and you'll see it purchased, and you'll see me at that closing table at the title company collecting my check. You'll see every bit of that. And the goal is not only to document for myself to go back and look at it and say, hey, look where you came since April 16, 2025. But it's also a way for you all to say, one, I can do this. It's somebody that looks just like me, my demographic, my age demographic, in my market that's doing something I wanted to do for a long time. And it's also somebody that's not money hungry when it comes to sharing knowledge. They just want to help people. And I'm giving you all the information, not all the information, all the information that I know, and giving it to you in one central location. All you gotta do is like, subscribe, comment, share, whatever else it is they tell you to do with these videos. Y'all bear with me. Y'all will actually see me become a content creator. I don't even want to call myself that because I'm not a social media person. And this is very awkward for me now talking to a camera, but we here, and y'all will see me grow in that aspect as well. But we're gonna get this thing rolling. Y'all stick with me. Thank y'all. That's episode 1, day 1. We're gonna do day 2 tomorrow in the same episode, and hopefully we can get under contract. And if not, we'll keep looking. Peace.